Hello, this is Basil with Tech Sparks. I have Brad Feld with me, the Managing Director of Foundry Group. Brad, welcome.
Thanks, Basil.
So let's ask you about Foundry Group's creation. What instigated the idea of the creation of Foundry Group, and what distinguished Foundry from other VCs?
I have three partners at Foundry, and the four of us had worked together before at Mobius Venture Capital since around 2000, plus or minus a year for each person. And we knew each other extremely well, and we had learned a lot from the experience, both good and bad, and decided that we really wanted to create a firm that was very, very focused on a set of deeply held beliefs around how to be effective as a seed stage investor. We also wanted to create a firm that had four equal partners, that had no aspiration to ever grow and expand. Our first fund that we raised was a $225 million fund. Our second fund was a $225 million fund. Our third fund will be a $225 million fund. So we picked a set of things that we feel like we're really great at and decided to just spend our investing careers, the balance of it, doing the best possible job we could within a domain that we knew well, which was software internet, within a country that we knew well, which was the US, at a stage that we were comfortable with, and then across a set of themes that we defined that evolve over time, but the themes are all very horizontal and have 20-plus year lives. And then finally, in a relationship with entrepreneurs and with each other, that was an extremely collaborative one rather than a hierarchical one.
Great. Jumping to the second question, which startup ideas jump at you when they approach you for investments?
We're totally focused on a set of themes, which anybody can see at foundrygroup.com/themes. So if something's outside a theme, we say no immediately to it with only a few exceptions. And if something's within a theme, then we go extremely deep on the people and the product.
So speaking of themes, which themes are hot now, and which themes do you think startups from the Arab world could be potentially considered?
So none of our themes are actually hot. We view our themes as conceptual frameworks that last for 20-plus years. An example would be human-computer interaction, or essentially the way that humans and computers change and their behavior changes over time, and software and technologies to enable that. Another example is a theme we call glue, which is software that connects other software together and essentially is the software fabric of the internet. Neither of those are hot, or I don't think any of the rest of the things that we invest in are, quote, hot. We're not chasing that. We're very, very focused on these things that have very long innovation curves.
Brad, when entrepreneurs approach you, what common mistakes occur usually?
Probably three things. One is people don't do their research in advance, so they treat all venture capitalists as a generic archetype. It's extremely easy to find out a lot of information about what we like and what we don't like. Second is people approach us as though it's a transactional relationship. I'm looking to raise money for my company, rather than develop a relationship before that and get to know us. And then the third is being so focused on what they're pitching as to not listen to the feedback they're getting. Those are three of the common ones.
And do you think there's a right time for entrepreneurs to raise money?
No. My personal belief is you should try to raise the least amount of money that you need to get to the next level of progress. There are moments in time where it's easy to raise larger amounts of money because of the progress your business is making, and you should take advantage of that. But in general, you should try to make as much progress as you can with the least amount of money.
So crowdfunding is set to change the investment scene. How do you think the environment will change here in the US and globally?
I don't think anybody has any idea, because the laws haven't been written yet. So crowdfunding to date has been pre-funding product development, Kickstarter and Kickstarter-like sites. I'm a very big fan of Kickstarter. I participate in a lot of Kickstarter projects. I'm essentially pre-buying something from somebody, a company that's creating something new. That's very different from crowdfunding from an equity perspective. And I think until we know what the laws are actually going to be, it's very hard to predict how it's going to impact anything.
Brad, you're one of the co-founders of Techstars, and you're currently a mentor there. Can you please tell us about the early stages of Techstars, and do you see any trends emerging in the accelerator space?
Sure. We've been doing Techstars now since the first program in Boulder in 2007. Early on, it was an experiment that David Cohen, who's the CEO, came up with, and a couple of others of us got very excited about and supported both functionally and financially. It's evolved really, really nicely. Techstars today is in Boston, New York, Boulder, Seattle. There's a vertical market program called Techstars Cloud that's based in San Antonio. Techstars runs the Microsoft Accelerator program, which is based in Seattle, around Connect and Azure ecosystem. So we've got a ton of experience, and now about 100 companies a year going through Techstars and various of the programs. The accelerator phenomena has expanded to be a worldwide phenomenon. Techstars has been very involved in that from the beginning. We've open sourced our approach. We've been as helpful as we can to other accelerators as they're getting started, whether we're mentors to them or just give them advice. We helped co-found something called the Global Accelerator Network about 2 years ago, which is aimed at all the sort of credible networks, that, accelerators that want to be part of a broader network activity. And I think it's just an incredible dynamic. It's very, very powerful for entrepreneurs. It's very powerful for mentors. That relationship works incredibly well. It's also a great way to level up the angel investing activity in a bunch of these early stage companies by making them both much stronger at the earlier stages, but also getting them actively engaged with those potential angels early on in their life.
So Techstars are known for a highly selective selection process. Can you tell us what's the process like, and how can a startup go through?
Sure. Each of the programs gets somewhere around, I'd say on average, it's 1,000 applicants. I think high numbers, maybe 1,500 going to 2,000. I think the Techstars Cloud program, the first year of it, got 400, 500 applicants. So there's a spectrum, and in that, we typically are taking about 10 to 15 companies. We started with 10. We've drifted up a little, 12 to 13. What we've concluded is that we don't want to have these huge programs, that the value of having a relatively small program allows there to be very, very deep engagement with the mentors. What I tell people that are interested is apply early and don't view the application process as an intelligence test. The application process is simple. It's very short, and it's simply a way of getting you engaged early with Techstars and with one of the programs. What you should do then is communicate with the managing director of whichever program or programs you've applied to on a continual basis and show him or her the progress that you're actually making. That, I think, is the most powerful way to get involved in the program. If you get invited to Techstars for a day, go. Take advantage of all the resources around to get to know some of the mentors, have them advocate for you.
So you mentioned mentorship, and it's effective. What makes it effective, and how is it different than the zillion global mentorship programs out there?
Well, I'll separate between mentorship and advisors for a sec. Lots of people hang themselves out as advisors. An advisor is somebody who says, I'd be happy to help you with your company if you give me something, where something is often defined as equity or some kind of a consulting fee or something like that. Mentorship is when somebody who's experienced says, look, I want to help you, and I have no expectation of what I'm going to get in return. I'm doing it for a variety of reasons. I might be interested in you personally. Somebody might have helped me somewhere along the line, and I'm paying it forward. I'm part of a community where that's the culture, and that's something we've tried to foster, not just in Techstars and not just in Boulder, but sort of very broadly throughout what we do. And fundamentally, in my worldview, it comes to this notion of give before you get. I have a really, really strong belief that if you give before you get, if you extend yourself and try to help people, the things that come back to you will far exceed what you put into the system. In many different ways, not just financial, but also emotional, karmic, and functional learning, etc. Many mentors are mentors because they learn as much, and in some cases even more, from the entrepreneurs they mentor than the entrepreneurs are learning from them. So it's a very, you have to take a leap of faith at the beginning, but once you engage in it, it's unbelievably satisfying and powerful.
So Brad, you sit on the board of many successful companies. In your opinion, what makes an effective and a great board of directors?
So most private company boards actually suck. I'm writing one of the books that I'm writing in the Startup Revolution series. For people that are interested, if they go to startuprev.com, they can see more about the books. Is a book called Startup Boards, and I think the subtitle is something like "Making Your Board of Directors Effective for You Again." The way a private company board works today is an artifact of the last 30 or 40 years, and really is pretty unchanged. Really, what an entrepreneur wants from his or her board is continual involvement at the appropriate levels, rather than an every 4, 6, 8, 12-week reporting process where people use the board meeting, the board members use the board meeting as a way to engage with the company. And in addition, you have an awful lot of board members, and there's many archetypes of this that we'll talk in the book, that are not very helpful. A lot of VCs fall into this trap. A number of outside directors and angel investors who are directors don't really understand how to be helpful as an investor, and instead fall into the trap of either trying to direct the entrepreneur, control the entrepreneur, judge what's going on, be overly Socratic and ask questions endlessly, but not actually do anything. Versus the frame of reference that I think my partners and I bring to the table, which is, as long as we support the person running the company, our job is to work for him or her in whatever capacity he or she needs. So every CEO and every leadership team is different, and each of the four of us are different in terms of what our strengths and weaknesses are. So the important thing is to try to figure out how to be helpful and be responsive on a continual basis to the leadership of the company, rather than try to manage it, control it, judge it, which is, I think, where many, many directors fall in.
Brad, in terms of entrepreneurs and failure, how do you think should entrepreneurs deal and benefit from failure, if you will?
I failed a lot at a lot of things, and I've had plenty of success as well. I view failure as just a part of the experience of trying to create stuff. And fundamentally, I think entrepreneurs have to start with the frame of reference that success is actually a combination of a whole bunch of things, which includes a lot of failure along the way. I think startup communities should embrace failure. They should embrace entrepreneurs that have failed, because there's an enormous amount of things that you learn from the experience of failing. As an investor, my favorite people to fund are people who have had one success and one failure, because they're doing it a third time and they've got a chip on their shoulder. They know what success tastes like, but they've also just had something not work. And so they're really going after it the next time. So I think culturally, and in the United States specifically, there's, broadly speaking, a good culture around failure and understanding failure, certainly from a legal perspective and an emotional and functional perspective. I think it's something that lots of other cultures in the world can benefit from, getting much, much better at it. And I think this cycle of entrepreneurship, you're starting to see that in different places that previously, failure was a bad thing rather than just something that happens in the creation process.
What pointers and tips would you like to give to entrepreneurs in the Arab region to make it big?
I would say a couple of very specific things. Number one, make sure the thing you're spending your time on is something you're incredibly passionate about. I think a lot of people fall into the trap of wanting to be an entrepreneur and then spend their time on a business or on a business idea that they're, at least somewhat interested in, but they're not obsessed with. To be really successful, to be able to work through all the ups and downs and the challenges, you really have to be obsessed with the thing you're doing. That's number one. Number two, play a long game. It's not a get-rich-quick scheme to be an entrepreneur. You're not going to have very many overnight successes. Sure, there will be some, and people will point at them and how amazing it is. But the norm is something that takes a long time, is incredibly hard, requires unbelievable amounts of discipline and stamina. So go into it with the view that you're playing a long-term game. And then the last is aggressively surround yourself with the best people you can find. Just be relentless about finding those people and figuring out ways to work with them. Give before you get. Contribute to what they're doing as a way of engaging them in what you're doing. And just don't be bashful about it.
Brad, that puts us at the end. Thank you so much for your time today, and we look forward to having you again in the future.
My pleasure.
Thank you.